welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell.
Hi, Rose.
Hey, Christine, how are you?
I'm good. It's quite early for you this morning in San Diego, so thank you for showing up.
Yeah. It's I think it's very fitting. Today's question or today's topic, let's see, how do we pose it as a question? How do we stay in hope in a time of great fear?
Because boy, there's a lot of fear on the airwaves these days.
Yeah. And I think it's really fitting that we're speaking about this because I woke up at very early in San Diego time, 4 o'clock, and just in this huge fear body. And I was eventually able to get back to sleep, but there's a lot of negative energy out there. And what do we do to combat that? How do we stay hopeful? Because we need to envision where we're going instead of staying stuck in where we are.
And so do you want to talk a little bit more about what being in a fear body looks like for you? Maybe some people aren't familiar with that.
Yeah. Well, okay. There's a lot going on. Obviously, there's a lot going on out there with climate. There's a lot going on here in the States politically, and there's a lot of anger and a lot of vitriol. And so, for me, fear shows up as almost a paralyzing anxiety.
Okay.
And then my mind ruminates with all the things that are going wrong, could go wrong. And then, then you go down the rabbit hole about, oh, I didn't do this and I haven't done this and maybe I've offended this person. And it just
did I wash my hands after,
for 20 seconds
outside?
or for just for 5.
Exactly.
There's obviously the coronavirus is really putting people in a very scary place. And mainstream media, I know we've discussed this before, feeds us fear continually. And
because it sells.
Because it sells. Yeah, because it sells. Because you find even social media, you start looking at a story and then that feeds into the next story, into the next story. We always talk about that rabbit hole when you're on the internet, but negative feeds into negative. And so how do you stop that?
I mean, is the answer to turn off the news and get off social media? Is that that's
sometimes I think that is.
Yes, that's one.
Sometimes I think it is. For me, we started doing Sandra Boatman's challenge yesterday,
right?
And I found myself this morning when I was in that fear body. Thank you, Sandra. Very helpful. I went out and stood on my porch and visualized growing roots. And I am a practitioner of earthing. For people that don't know what that is, I'm one of those crazy people that goes out in my backyard in my bare feet and stands and feels Mother Earth and feels the ions of Mother Earth. And that helps me to stay calm, stay connected. So this morning I did get up at 4 a.m., pitch black, went out and stood on my porch. Now it wasn't on the grass, it was pouring rain. So I was underneath the umbrella, but I still had that feeling of foundation, feet beneath me, earth beneath my feet, and just listened to the quiet, the wind, the rain, nature, breathing, just breathing, and getting out of my head into my body. That for me really stops the fear. And the breath helps me get back into my body and not and out of my mind. How does it work for you? Do you find yourself in feelings of overwhelm occasionally, or more so these days?
Um,
Because you're an energy practitioner, so you have more expertise, shall we say, in dealing with these. You have more tools in your tool basket or toolbox than most of us do.
That's right. I'm superhuman, is what Rose is saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's good to have a friend who's superhuman.
No, I'm not. And that's a good question. I mean, part of where I choose to live is to be deliberately sort of apart from the craziness, because
Mhm.
I
You're
live
talking about where you physically
where I
live.
physically live.
Mhm.
It's remote, and so if I don't, I didn't know. I went for a massage yesterday. A really good way to deal with the
Yeah.
your body. Although I booked it, 2 months ago. So I guess maybe the moral of that is there's always something that you need a massage for. But my massage therapist told me during the massage that she had just heard that the stock market was shut down. That shocked me, because I
Mhm.
knew that things were going poorly. Well, sort of up and down, but mostly down. And so that was interesting, because she said, okay, now I can tell, because I tensed up.
Yeah, your whole body's like a board. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I also did Sandra's day one challenge, and grounding is helpful. I do a morning energy routine that's from Donna Eden, who's an energy practitioner, and it's all
Mhm.
about grounding. And because I can tune into my energy, I can tell if I'm grounded or not after that. Usually does. It's pretty effective. So I did it this morning again. But I wonder if now might be a good time to read a little bit of Gary Zukav's response to what's going on right now. Now, I don't know if you've read Gary Zukov, Rose.
I have The Seat of the
Okay.
Soul. Yep.
Seat of the Soul, and a whole bunch of others. Of course, he sort of got famous on Oprah.
Oprah Book Club. Yep.
Yes,
Back in the day. Yep.
exactly. So I'm going to read just excerpts of it. Of course, he makes the point that people are speaking frequently about fear, political situation, unstable markets, the weather, just like what we were talking about. And of course, the coronavirus on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what Gary Zukov writes. Concern about the virus is now surpassing the other fears that frightened parts of our personalities put on inner display daily for us, if we are willing to look at, and in brackets, experience them, instead of distracting ourselves with food, work, sex, obsessions, and addictions. As we take these inner displays seriously and begin to explore them, a surprising discovery becomes observable, then noticeable, then unavoidable. The most invasive virus that we can experience today is fear. It
Yeah.
is contagious, spreads quickly, and is dangerous. It puts our ability to give the gifts that we were born to give at risk, and a life without giving them is a life of emotional pain, psychological pain, physical pain, every kind of pain. And then he goes on to say there's no vaccine against fear, but there is a way to be healthy again if you become infected. Create authentic power. Frightened parts of your personality generate pain, and loving parts of your personality relieve you of it when you cultivate them repeatedly. So he says there is hope, and he goes on to observe the basic rules of the coronavirus. washing your
Mhm.
hands, all of that
Mhm.
good advice. But then he says, most important, do what is necessary to ensure that you do not become infected with the truly dangerous virus of fear. The
Yeah.
physical virus is given to you to show what is necessary to be physically healthy. This is symbolic, as is every experience in the earth school. The destructive virus of fear is given to you to awaken you to what is necessary to move beyond fear permanently. This is far superior to what any vaccine can produce. And I love his last paragraph is, you can begin this process by enjoying yourself.
Mhm.
That is
Mhm.
a well-known and time-tested antidote to fear. Said another way, love is the only effective, and it is always effective, remedy to a life of fear.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's
Ah,
beautiful. The most invasive virus that we can experience today is fear.
yeah,
So, so true.
yeah,
And I think when people's anger escalates, and here in the States, we really are seeing it in our political system. It's left versus right, but it's even within the Democratic Party. Obviously, it's not going to be a surprise to anybody that I'm a progressive, but even within our own party, there's as we're working towards our Democratic nominee, there's the Biden versus Sanders, and that people are really angry at each other and just spewing all kinds of nastiness. And so what I see is that people are showing who they are, and right now they're showing that they're really in their fear body, because that's where anger is a direct result of fear.
yeah,
So how do we remain hopeful? And I think, to your point about having a daily practice through where you incorporate Donna Eden's work, or what we're doing with Sandra Boatman, um, to set up a practice. I think that's the whole point of her challenge, is that after these 5 days, you will have a practice. If you can stay with it, right? You have to be
hmm,
mindful.
hmm,
If you can stay with it, you'll have a practice that helps you step beyond that, because we're going to be hit with it in waves. It's out there, it's an energy, and you can either allow it to knock you to your knees, which it does sometimes, just like when you're at the shore, right? And you get pummeled by a wave and you fall down and land on your butt and get a nosebleed. That happens energetically. But can you get back up? And can you say that this is a momentary thing? I'm going to focus on hope, because we need to.
yeah. And I would say that, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before, about what a pivotal time in history it is. But I would say for millennia now, fear has been the dominant emotion controlling Western civilization.
Mhm.
And so here we are, and wow, wow.
Yeah, well, I
We,
mean, if you go back to our religious base of fear, you know.
yes,
Yeah,
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 because
and
you
and
got
it
to
and it
do,
works. It works.
yeah,
Let's control the masses. We'll have them afraid of fire and brimstone, right? We're,
that's right.
and then so on many, many levels. Um, mm,
Yes.
Sorry to
And I
interrupt.
would,
Go ahead.
no, no, exactly. And I would say Jesus's message was the opposite of fear, but it was useful to the institutional church that grew out of his message to
Mm-hmm.
use fear, the patriarchal institutional church to use fear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's,
That's really interesting. So in a time now where we are seeing divine feminine rising, and we're seeing that compassion and empathy and collaboration, which are all things integral to that women do naturally. um
well, it's in our nature. Not all women are collaborative and
well,
compassionate.
right, but it is the feminine model versus the
Yes.
masculine model, right?
Archetypally, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's interesting that we are really being called to step into this empathic, this compassionate, um and compassion for ourselves, as well as compassion for others, compassion for forgiveness for ourselves. It has to start with ourselves.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Not always easy.
No,
Not always easy.
no. And I had a revelation for myself about how relationally, where I want, something out of I want respect, or I want this in a relationship. And I realized that it is not about that person giving it to me. It's one of, we've talked about Byron Katie before and her
Right.
work where you reverse it, and so if you feel like your partner needs to do this for you, your partner needs to love me more, or whatever it is. And she very powerfully turns that around. There's different ways always, but one of the ways to turn around is you need to love yourself more. And so that's kind of what came through for me, and working through some issues recently, is like, then it really doesn't matter if you can really step up. And I am not a superwoman, and I'm not all together, but
Oh, come on. Come on.
I've been working on myself for years. I took my first Enneagram course when I was 24. So I'm not going to say how many years ago that was, but it was a few decades.
100.
A long time ago. And so it's a journey. And I resonate with what Gary Zukav always says about this being the Earth School. Maybe some of our listeners don't, but I truly believe that we're here and we're learning the lessons that we need to learn. And so if we're here in a time of climate change, in a time of coronavirus, in a time of really destructive politics in the US of A, and in Canada,
and in Britain, and in Brazil, and in Korea, and in, it's none of us are getting out in not in New Zealand. Thank you.
Not in New Zealand.
Not in New Zealand. Woo! With a female leader.
And I think Iceland's got it all together too. So, but the US is the big one, because when you go down, you're going to take a lot of the rest of us with you, seeing as we're north of you. So, but
yeah, and so here's another thing that thank you for saying that. So that comes into play for me is the responsibility gene of, when we go down, we're taking everybody else with us. I think we need to unravel our sense of responsibility for everybody else and really work on healing ourselves.
I agree, because
I'm doing a lot of codependency work right now. So this is, I see it everywhere. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. How am I enmeshed in that situation? And keeping boundaries for yourself. Not allowing somebody else, as an empath, not allowing somebody else's emotions to overtake you.
And I would say that is absolutely the only way that we can impact this situation, is by doing our own work. And it doesn't always mean that we just focus on me, but we do our work, and then we move out into the world based on being in alignment, because that's what's going to make the shift that's necessary. And I don't know, I had a moment I'll share. Maybe that's why I'm not been in my fear body as much for the last couple of days, but I was walking outside, and it just suddenly came to me, thinking about, what was going on with everything's, well, the stock market and coronavirus. We actually are leaving shortly to go to the West Coast, to our second home there. And then we're going, is that really a smart idea? Because they're having, they're closer to China. They have, there's more back and forthing between the East and the China and Japan in BC, and certainly in Red Lake. So thinking about that, but I just, it did seem to me, and of course thinking about climate change, because that's always in the back of my mind, that I think that we are going to muster a response to climate change in time. Certainly the effects are accumulating, and it is possible. It is within the realm of possibility, as we've talked about. But wow, we're going to be wounded.
Well, I think we are wounded. I think
Yes.
it's bringing, what this is teaching us is just how wounded we are. And can each of us recognize how our individual woundedness is adding to the collective woundedness? And what does that do to the whole? Maybe that's the lesson in it. Physician, heal thyself.
Well, you know what? I think that now might be a good time. I know I read Gary Zukav already. I'm also on Valerie Kaur's newsletter.
I don't know who she is.
Oh, you'd love her.
Oh, good. Just one more author that I need to.
You know what?
I've
never read her books, but I do. I am on her newsletter, but she's calling for a revolution of love as well. She's definitely on the same page as we are, and a lot of people. And she is a Sikh in the U.S. and a civil rights lawyer. And her community has been really affected by racism since 9/11. Revolutionary Love is her website.
Love the name of that.
Yeah, and she calls what she's doing is the Revolutionary Love Project, based out of Los Angeles. And she sent around a newsletter. The title is 2 words, Chardi Kala. So that's CHARDI, Kala, KALA. And she goes on to talk about an elder in the Sikh community who has died, and his funeral and cremation is happening around the time she's writing this. And she says, I want to tell you his story because I believe he shows us how to be brave in this dark and uncertain time. So his name was Baba Punjab Singh. He was a renowned Sikh teacher who traveled the world to speak and teach in Gurdwaras, Sikh houses of worship. His sons and grandchildren loved him as much as the thousands who flocked to listen to him. I'm skipping a bit here, we called him Papa Ji. So he was gunned down on August 5th, 2012, when there was a shooter, a white supremacist, entered the Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. And it was the largest hate crime on Sikhs in U.S. history. At the time, it was also the largest act of violence on a faith community since the 1963 Birmingham church bombing. 6 people were killed, but Papa Ji survived. And he was rushed to the hospital, and where he couldn't move or speak, only blink his eyes. She writes, his wife, sons, and grandchildren took turns tending to him. They massaged his legs, combed his hair, whispered prayers in his ears, day in and day out for 7.5 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so she
talks
about
keeping hope alive.
Yes. And she talks about how she would visit him and braid his hair. But, and then again, I'm skipping. Whenever I grew despondent, I would call Papa Ji's son, Raghuvinder Singh, a teacher like his father. He cared for his father around the clock, yet he was ever radiant. He always said, Valerie, we live in Chardi Kala. Tell the world that our message is Chardi Kala. I used to translate this Sikh concept, she writes, Chardi Kala, as relentless optimism. But what I saw in this family was not about the future at all. This was about a state of being in the present moment, as if now is all there is. Now and now and now. This is a state of joyfulness inside the struggle, an energy that keeps us in motion, a breathing that keeps us laboring even inside pain. Chardi Kala is how we labor in love. On my last visit to Papa G, his condition was the same. He still could not move or speak. I asked him, Papa G, are you in Chardi Kala? He could only blink his eyes, once for no, twice for yes. Papa G blinked his eyes twice. Yes. If Papa G could be in Chardi Kala until his dying breath, so can I. So can all of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that just.
Yeah. I'm choking up too, so.
Yeah, really choked up by that. Yep. Emotions are running high right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to make the mindful determination of which emotion do we want to lead with. Is it fear or is it love?
Yeah, and because as you said already, underneath fear, there's always, or underneath anger is always fear. But if we mind that, we can get the nuggets that are there, because there's hurt, there's pain, there's a reason that we're fearful, and ignoring it doesn't help either.
No.
Pretending that it's not there, but breathing into it and feeling it. So I think we should do some tapping on fear.
Okay.
Maybe that's our action tip and sanity tip, is just tapping right now on what we're experiencing.
That'd be very healing.
Okay. So do we have any good news before we close with some tapping?
No.
Okay, yes.
Pollyanna is not here.
She has left the building.
Pollyanna has left the building.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure Bill McKibben tweeted around another big divestment.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yeah. Actually, yes.
Ivy?
Brown University. Brown University leads the way. And hopefully there are many others that will follow.
Yeah.
Divesting from fossil fuels. Yeah. Thank you for that reminder.
Okay.
I saw that earlier in the week. Now I'm just too choked up that I'm like, no, there's nothing good happening. Nothing.
Well, our
Listeners,
we'll see how human we actually are. And let's tap. So,
Okay.
So fear, overwhelm, is there anything else that comes up for you?
Well, the overwhelm for me when I'm in fear is despair.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's tap on that. So we're going to start. I'll put up a chart online if people have never tapped before, but we're just going to start tapping on the side of the hand, down from the little finger on the fleshy part. And you can do your two hands together or one hand on the side of the other one. It's really up to you. And we're just going to say, even though I feel despairing right now.
Even though I feel despairing right now.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Wow, it feels like a crappy time to be alive.
Wow, it feels like a crappy time to be alive.
I can't believe I signed up for this.
I can't believe I signed up for this.
But I'm willing.
But I am willing.
At some level. To accept the situation I find myself in.
To accept the situation that I find myself in.
And love and appreciate myself.
And love and appreciate myself.
Even though it looks like everything's going to H in a handbasket.
Even though it looks like everything is going to H-E.
L-L.
Double toothpicks in a hand in a hand basket.
We have to keep it clean, otherwise we have to change our rating on our podcast.
That's right. Thank you, Apple. Yes.
I love and appreciate myself.
I love and appreciate myself.
Okay, now we're going to start tapping through the points, and we're going to start on our eyebrow point. So just where your eyebrow meets sort of the top of your nose, you're tapping with one or both hands, say.
Full hands or fingers?
Just two fingers often works. All of this fear,
All of the sphere.
I'm just acknowledging it.
I am just acknowledging it.
And then tapping on the side of the eye, just kind of on the bony part. Yeah, there. 2 fingers again. All of this fear
All of the sphere
in my body
in my body
and in the collective body.
and in the collective body.
I'm just recognizing it.
I'm just recognizing it.
And underneath the eye, just on, the bony part. Don't poke yourself. And all of this fear.
All of the sphere.
All of these reasons to be fearful.
All of these reasons to be fearful.
If I run out of reasons,
If I run out of reasons,
I can always turn on the TV.
I can always turn on the TV, pick up the newspaper,
Yeah,
turn on the radio.
yeah.
Yeah.
Be reminded of a few more.
Be reminded of a few more.
Tapping underneath the nose, down the upper lip. All of this fear.
All of the sphere.
It's in my body.
It's in my body.
It's in the body of humanity.
It's in the body of humanity.
And I'm just recognizing it.
And I'm just recognizing it.
All of this fear.
All of the sphere.
Okay, and then we're going to move down and tap on our chin. Just kind of the little dimple. All of this fear.
All of the sphere.
It can be really scary
It can be really scary
to be human in the 21st century
to be human in the 21st century.
and to be an aware human in the 21st century.
Mhm. To be an aware human in the 21st century.
Okay, and then we're going to go down to the collarbone points, which is your collarbone, and then there's a hollow underneath, and so you can tap there. All of this fear.
All of the sphere.
It's in me and it's out there.
It's in me and it's out there.
I'm not trying to change it right now.
I'm not trying to change it right now.
I'm just recognizing it,
I'm just recognizing it,
naming it.
naming it.
Okay, and then we're going to tap underneath the arm, women, where your bra strap is. All of this fear
All of the sphere
and connected emotions.
and connected emotions.
Anger,
Anger,
anxiety,
anxiety,
overwhelm.
overwhelm.
I'm just acknowledging that it's in my body.
I'm just acknowledging it's in my body
And in the collective body.
and in the collective body.
Okay, and then take a big breath. Actually, lift your arms above your head. Fill your lungs and now. If this was actually a tapping session, we'd do more, but it's a podcast, so we have to.
Well, it's interesting how my head, as I was tapping, it felt like I was moving it out of my head. I was moving out of my head, which is where those thoughts ruminate.
Yeah, and that's how we move it. I love tapping because it's such an effective mind-body tool. Because if we just have it, spinning the wheels up in our heads, and our culture doesn't teach us to connect mind and heart and body. And so it's something we have to deliberately cultivate. But if we don't do that, and a lot of people don't, just spinning, just like when you get stuck in the mud or snow, you're just spinning your tires and you never get anywhere, and it stays around. So this is actually a way to move it. So we have to wrap up because we're going overtime.
Okay. Well, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use song for the ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me.